My name is Paul Imhoff, and I'm the superintendent of schools, and I know I've met many of you, but I want to thank you for coming out tonight to our extra building team meeting to share some additional information with you. I want to start by just asking if this is the first meeting you have been to about the facilities, if you could just raise your hand. Okay, great. Thank you. A special welcome to all of you. I just want to make sure that we know that so I can cover a few things just to get all of us on the same page. Before we start, I just want to talk a little bit about the evening, and before I do that, I want to introduce the members of the Board of Education we have with us tonight. First of all, the President of the Board of Education, Mr. Matt McClellan. Thanks for being here, Matt. We have Board Member Stacy Royer with us. Thanks for being here, Stacy. And Board Member Carol Moore. Carol, thank you so much for being here. The two other members of the Board of Education are Nancy Dries and Robin Comfort, and we certainly appreciate everything that the Board of Education does to lead our schools in such a wonderful way. Tonight, we're going to be together in this room for just about an hour. We have a lot of information to share, and there's going to be an opportunity for you all to provide feedback, which is the most important part of the evening. Because of the size of the group, we're going to hold questions until we break into our feedback groups. And then all of us as the school people are going to circulate, and we will stay here as long as you like to answer all of your questions. So with that, I am going to talk about what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to just do a really quick overview of the master planning process to get us all on the same page. We're going to spend some time talking about our updated enrollment projections, because that's very important. When you start talking about renovating or repairing or rebuilding buildings, you obviously need to plan for the right number of students, and so we want to share information about where we are there. We want to talk to you about the data we have already received from all of you, really focusing on the community online survey that recently closed. We had over 2,400 people who responded to that, and you're going to be among the first people to see that tonight, and so we're excited to share that with you. We wanted to answer some outstanding questions that have come to us and some new ideas that have come to us from the Jones and the high school building teams. And members of the Jones and the high school building teams have asked us to look at some additional options. And so we're going to share those with you tonight and ask for your feedback. One of the things I want to be careful about, we're only going to be talking about Jones and the high school tonight, because those are the only two buildings where we have had building teams ask us for more options. It does not mean that we're just focusing on Jones and the high school. It just means those are the only two buildings where we have additional options to talk about tonight. We are continuing to focus, obviously, on all of our buildings. Obviously, we are here to gather your feedback, and then at the end, we're going to talk about next steps in the process that are going to bring this options phase to a close, and then we're going to talk to you about the decisions phase, which is going to be coming forward soon. Thank you very much. Chris just told me to remind you, we have a sign-in sheet on all of the tables, and this would be a great time, and there are pens. If you would please sign in on that sheet and list your email address so we can keep you up to date on the process and gather your feedback, that would be very helpful. Everything we share tonight is going to be on our website, and we are also filming tonight. So if you have friends and neighbors who were not able to be here, they will be able to see everything that happened tonight. Or if you just want to watch it again sometime because you're up in the middle of the night, right? So this will be available to you if there's nothing on Nick at Night or whatever. Moving forward, just wanted to talk briefly about why we are here. As a reminder, this all started when we had a group of private residents in our community issue a report to the Board of Education, and they were called an efficiency and productivity team, and their report's on our website. And they said that their biggest concern for our financial health of the district was the age and the condition of our buildings. And so they suggested that we needed to put together a facilities master planning process and involve the entire community. And they said that needed to happen immediately. And the Board of Education took that advice and put together over a 2-year, 3-phase facilities master planning process. In the first phase of that process, which was the assessment phase, we spent almost a year determining our baseline. Where are we now? And we had started with a third-party physical assessment of all of our buildings. The state of Ohio, at no expense to us, paid a firm from Northern Ohio to come and give a third-party assessment of our building. And this firm will never work in our district. And so this was meant to be, again, a third-party assessment of our building, and they looked at all of the physical needs in our building. And that report is on our website. In addition, after they completed their work, the Board of Education hired a design team and a construction estimating team. And they came and they did another more in-depth physical assessment of our buildings, and that report is on our website. And they also did an educational assessment of our buildings to determine what we needed to do to continue to meet the educational needs in our district moving forward for the next half century. All of that happened in the assessment phase, and you'll find all of those reports on our website. In the second phase of the process, which is the options phase, and we moved into that in January, we started looking at all the different ways we could possibly address our facilities needs in all 9 of our school buildings. And so members of building teams, and how many of you served on one or more building teams? Raise your hand. Wow, thank you very much. And so members of our building teams actually worked with our design team to actually design options for each of our buildings that our community could then provide feedback on. And so we have been working through this process since January, and many of you did the online survey, and all of those options that you provided feedback on actually came from our building teams. Our options phase is due to be complete by the end of this calendar year. In fact, we are due to make a recommendation to our Board of Education about the options phase and about our selected option for each of the 9 buildings at the October 10th board meeting. And so this is all coming to a close quickly as far as the options phase. And then our third and final phase is going to begin in January, and that's going to be the decisions phase. And I'm going to spend some time at the end of the meeting talking to you about all the details of that phase of the process. So at this point, I'm going to invite our Associate Superintendent, Dr. Kathy Jenny, to come forward and talk to you about our enrollment projections moving forward. Kathy?
Well, I want to thank all of you as well for coming tonight. It's just such an exciting time to be talking about this information. So one of the major things that we do each year is to look at our enrollment and projections in terms of staffing, programming, and all those types of things. So to do that, we look at multiple sources of data. We annually use a company called Planning Advocates that helps gather a lot of data from a lot of different resources and gives us an annual update of where our projections are currently at in terms of grade level bands, individual grade levels, and then the district overall. When Paul mentioned earlier about the OFCC doing a study in 2014, they also did an enrollment projection report, which really just kind of affirmed a lot of the other information that we had from our annual report. And then we use these enrollment reports to even look monthly at what's happening in terms of staffing levels and supports for our students. Oops, I'm sorry. So when you look at our historical trends, this is a graph of where we were from 2007 up through July of this year. So you'll see the historical trending. It's just been pretty steady in terms of enrollment growth in the past 10 years. This slide shows, though, what we are seeing happening now moving forward. We are seeing an increase in enrollment, which is a really great thing for our community. And you can just kind of see this trend line showing you what's happening and what we anticipate happening out through 2025. So let's look a little deeper at that. Excuse me. So this graphic shows some important information in terms of what we are anticipating for enrollment growth. So just flipping back for a second here, I want to go back to this one for a second. When we look at enrollment projections, we look at historical data, which is a slide I just shared with you. We also look at live birth counts, not birth rates, which is oftentimes a little bit more of a fluctuating number. They take the actual count available by county and then by zip code. and take a look at how many actual births occurred in the area in which they're focused on. And why that is important is it helps us to really know with pretty good accuracy, obviously out 5 years, and then the 10-year number becomes a little more subjective. So let's go back and look at that. So in doing that, we are using the projection out to 2020 as a basis for looking at what capacity do we need to be ready for in that time frame in terms of overall population in 6 years. We are going to use that to estimate the needed classroom space. The reason we are focusing there for classroom space is because classroom space is easier to add down the road if we continue to grow to a point where we need additional space because of enrollment. The second number that we look at is that 10-year projection, the 2025. We are going to use this as the basis for the large common spaces, because those spaces are much more difficult to add on to when you have to go back and add if enrollment continues to grow. We are anticipating the major shift between enrollment is primarily at K-5, obviously related to more live births, more children coming into the district. And it is about overall average over this period, about a 13.7% increase compared to that historical amount of about 4%. So that is what's happening for us right now in terms of enrollment projections.
You know, this is really important. Many of you know Chris Potts and I, our COO, have been doing coffee meetings throughout the community. We've done 30 some of those, and we made a commitment to do many, many more than that. And we've been going house to house to talk to people about what is going on. And we talk about enrollment. One of the questions we always ask is, how many of you knew that we were growing by as much as we were growing? And we typically get almost no one who raises their hand. And so we know we have a lot more work to do as a school district to really explain to our community that we are growing, and that's going to drive some needs for some more classroom space. And so this is just really important. Now, as we move forward, I wanted to talk about some of the community feedback. And again, we really want to thank the over 2,400 people who took the time to go online and fill out our survey. That's a lot of people. When you do online surveys, and we do a lot of online surveys, we typically don't get that many people to fill out a survey. The only other survey we get that people are really interested in is when we ask parents their views on our school calendar. That's always popular. People always want to weigh in on when the spring break is and all those sorts of things. But other than that survey, it can be really difficult to have people go on and fill out. And this was a lengthy survey and a lot of details. So we do want to thank people for that. As we're nearing the point, and I mentioned on October 10th, we're going to be making a recommendation to the Board of Education about our preferred option for each of the 9 buildings, and all those options together formulate our master plan. And we want to be clear on how we're making that decision and where that recommendation is coming from. And that recommendation is going to be coming from these data points. And we're going to be sharing data from the first 4 of these tonight. First of all is the feedback we got from the community engagement session number 4 that happened in this room, and then we had a morning session at a local church, and that happened in April. So we have all the feedback from the people who attended those 2 community meetings. We have feedback, which is data point number 2, from all the members of the building team, and they were really involved in the formation of the options, and so they also told us what they thought about the options. Our third data point is we have 12 members of the community who volunteered to be a part of an advisory team for us. And this is a team of people who have expertise in construction or in real estate or in those sorts of things. And they have been helping us walk through this process for the last year and a half. And we have a few of those people here. If you're a member of that task force, could you just stand so we could thank you? Yeah, go ahead. I see a few of you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Our fourth data point is the online survey that over 2,400 of you filled out as community members, and we also had our staff fill that out, and we gathered those responses separately because people wanted to see what our staff felt, and I'll be sharing those. And then the fifth item is almost done. And we actually contracted with a professional opinion research company to conduct a telephone survey. And they have been conducting that, and maybe you received a call about that. And we are going to get the findings of that telephone survey, and they are going to be presented at a special meeting of the Board of Education on September 27th, and I'll give you this date later, on September 27th at 6 o'clock at our central office on the Mallway. Now, as we look at these 5 data points, all 5 of these data points are important. People have asked us, well, how are you weighing them, and what is the math going to be? And we are not putting different weights on these formally. What we are doing is, as we look at all 5 of these data points, we are looking for emerging themes and common themes. And it is our goal as we come to the Board of Education with a recommendation that recommendation is going to make great sense to all of us based upon all of these data points collectively. And again, we're going to be sharing all of that in detail at the board meeting on October 10th. And so you're going to be getting a packet tonight that has a bunch of charts like this with the feedback from all 9 buildings. Now, as we've done in previous meetings, if you've been in previous meetings, I'm just going to walk through the data for the high school, because we would be here a long time if I walked through every data point for all 9 buildings. So we're going to give you all the feedback for all 9 buildings in a packet, but I just want to explain to you the charts that you're going to be seeing tonight using the high school as an example. So on this first chart, you see the people who filled out the community survey. Now, if you look up here, it says 2,200 respondents, and I've now said 3 or 4 times over 2,400 people filled out our online survey. When we gave the instructions for the online survey, we gave people the option to fill out the survey for the buildings that they knew the best. So not every person filled out the survey for every building. So as you look at all of these results, we're going to tell you how many people filled it out. Are you with me? Okay, great. So at the high school, you can see all of the results there. And then on the high school, we also asked some other questions about acquiring land and about possibly moving our stadium. And so those are the data points from the community members who filled out that survey. Now, we also asked the staff the same questions. And you'll see we had 261 members of our staff fill out the survey, and you'll see what they felt about this. Now, as I went back to the last slide, there are other data points we have collected other than just this community survey. This is the result of the survey filled out by the Community Facilities Task Force. I told you we had 12 members, but we had one of them that was not able to fill out the survey, and so we had 11 respondents, and this is what they think. Moving on, our second data point, we had 61 members of the high school building team who gave us feedback on the options, and these are their results from that. And then finally, we had 94 people who attended our community engagement meetings and filled out feedback about the high school, and this is what they said. And so again, we're going to pass all of this out to you as soon as Chris and I are done walking through the information, and you'll be able to, at your leisure, walk through all of the information. We're also going to put all of the information on the website by tomorrow morning. I'm looking for Karen. Okay, by tomorrow at noon. Okay, great. Okay, so that'll all be on the website by tomorrow at noon. Okay? And so at this point, I'm going to invite Chris to come up and talk about some of the options, or the options that have been requested by the members of the high school and the Jones building teams. Before I do that, I just want to make the point again. We are talking about the high school and Jones only tonight because those are the building teams who asked us to look at other options. We are still looking at and gathering feedback for all 9 of our buildings. We're only focusing on those 2 tonight because, again, the building teams wanted to know more about some other ideas, and Chris is going to walk us through that. Thanks, buddy.
All right, well, thank you again for being here tonight. And thank you so much to the building team members, because you've had such insightful and valuable questions you've asked throughout this process. And those are the questions we're going to try to show you tonight and answer as it relates to the high school in Jones and the different options that you've asked us to explore for those two buildings. For example, at the high school, we were asked about, can you look at 4 stories instead of 3 stories? Can you look at parking decks or parking garages to increase parking on site instead of just surface parking? Those types of things. I'll be upfront and tell you right now, parking decks and parking garages are very expensive. And those aren't something that we're going to be pursuing in this process because of the cost of those. And so parking decks are off the table, but we are going to see an option tonight that does a 4-story option at the high school, and you'll be able to see what that does to the site and how it impacts the site. So as we look at the building team questions from the high school, one of the 2 questions that we were asked a lot were, how can we provide more green space and more parking without acquiring land? And how would we design the site if we were starting from scratch? And so we have 34 acres on the high school site here. Most high schools our size, if they're building a new high school, would want to start with 48 acres. And so we really have to get creative and think about ways we can use this site to accomplish the needs that we need for the site. So those 2 questions are questions we're going to look at here as we look at an additional option that we are calling option E for the high school. So if you recall, we have had option A and B, C and D, and now E and F you're going to get tonight. And all these options will be available over here for you to look at after the meeting. So as we look at option E, it is very similar to option A in terms of the way the layout is on the site. But the difference is, instead of 3 stories, it's a 4-story academic wing building. In this option, just like option A, the stadium remains in place where it is today, but it will need renovations and repairs to the stadium. The track has reached its lifespan, the bleachers, those types of things throughout the facility will still be renovated in this option and repaired in this option. The turf field that we have today would stay in place and would be available. The additional synthetic turf field for increased use by the school and community on the increased green space by going to 4 options will be shown, and I'll show you here in a minute what that will look like. There'll be more green space for athletic fields. In this option, just like option A, we would need to find a spot for JV baseball off-site. Currently, JV baseball is on-site. JV softball is already off-site, so those 2 sports would have to be off-site for their practices and their games in this option. And those locations are yet to be determined. We'd have 2 parking lots with approximately the same number of spots that exist today, which is about 590 spots, so around that many. And then main entrances on Brandon Road would be into the high school in this option. So those are kind of the key features of option E that I'm going to show you here, and then we'll kind of walk through it so you can see what we're talking about here. And just like the other options, we have priced this, Turner has priced this, and Andy Geisfeld, our treasurer, has put a price tag to this based on the $400,000 home estimate. And you can see right here that this option to rebuild option E is $137 million. And the option A is over here, and you can see that tonight how it relates. But in this option, the stadium remains the same. You have most of your athletic spaces, your gymnasiums and your natatorium and your support spaces located right behind the stadium here. And so you see some efficiencies by putting the facilities together there. And so you can be using the same locker rooms and support spaces that you use for the stadium within these spaces. You have your academic part really in the middle of the property here. So your 4-story academic and arts wing. And so you have your 2 entrance, you have an athletic entrance actually at this end of the building, and then your academic entrance at this end of the building, with a lobby there for those areas. And then here, where the current high school stands today, is where we would develop, after this building is built, the tennis courts, your varsity baseball, your varsity softball, and then the 2 additional green spaces that we talked about in the features. And in this light green, what this is indicating here, as it is done here in the stadium, is that you have a turf field here and a turf field here for multi-use activity use by all of our teams and students within the community. And so in this option, really what happens is you're able to provide more green space for teams and activities to happen at the high school. And so an example of that would be perhaps we have more soccer and lacrosse happening on site as opposed to walking down to the fields they are today. And so this is the option E. and the changes that, and if you were to look over here at option A, very similar layout, except you would probably see when we uncover one of the ones turned around over here tonight, you will see a lot less orange, because when you go to 4 stories, you are condensing the site and providing more space, more green space for use here. And so this is an option E that spells out what it would look like if we were to go to 4 stories and not acquire any land. And so those are being turned over now, and you can see that there. Then in option F, just like option E, this is similar to option B, except it involves moving the stadium. So we have a 4-story academic wing, the stadium moves south, an additional turf field for increased use by the school and community, additional green space adjacent to the school for more academic and outdoor learning space. Again, like option E, JV baseball location would move off-site at a spot to be determined. In this option, we have a little bit more space for parking, and so parking would actually be increased by 75 spots on-site, and you would still have in both options, obviously, the street parking that surrounds the high school, but in this site, we have 2 different lots that surround the school that provide 75 additional spots, and then your main academic entrance would be on Zollinger Road, with an entrance for activities being on Brandon Road. And so you'll see here that the 4-story option is located here on Zollinger Road, and you have a lobby entrance here to the academic and arts wing, as well as here, and then this is a shared lobby space for your auditorium and your arts space, and a courtyard here, and then your activities entrance would be at this end of the facility. So what this does is it really orients your academic and arts and theater space at one end of the building, and your athletics and activity space at the other side of the property. And so in this scenario, again, like I said, it's you're looking at a 4-story option here, 2 to 3 stories here, and then additional parking up in this corner and throughout here. And in this option, obviously, the stadium is being moved, and all the components of the stadium are being rebuilt. Like the other options, again, that we have the price listed up in this corner, as well as what it would mean in terms of a bond issue, and the price for you as a resident per $400,000 home. And so we've provided the same type of format that we've provided on the other options as in this option. In Jones, we had a really good question that came from our building team and also came from the survey, the community survey, was how can you make Jones work without acquiring space? So if you recall, in the renovate option that's available right now for Jones, we are actually looking at taking the land where central office is currently located, that parking, and a medical building for a spot for tennis, because where tennis is now would be removed for an addition. And so we had a lot of people inquire from our building team, how can you do that differently? Do you have to acquire land? Can you look on land that the board owns? And so that's exactly what we did. And in this option, it's very similar to the renovate option. All the things within the building are the same, except in this option, there's no land acquisition. The district office remains where it is, although I'll tell you, we will need some repairs and renovations to that office, and we are currently undergoing an assessment so we can share that with the community, what that needs, just some things that need to happen to that building so it can sustain for years to come. The 4 tennis courts are built over the current parking lot that we own on the South Mallway. So picture the South Mallway there at Jones, and we'll show you a picture in a minute, but the 4 tennis courts would go over that surface parking, and then we would have 20 more spaces on that existing parking. And so let me explain that a little, because when you have a small site like Jones and you're trying to squeeze everything in, you have to think outside the box. And thinking outside the box means doing things a little differently. And so in this option, these tennis courts are actually elevated and there's surface parking underneath them. All right, and so what you're seeing here is the addition that would happen at Jones for the gymnasium and the other space, the cafeteria and the classroom space, and then this parking lot right here, these tennis courts would be elevated with parking underneath. So currently there are about 40 spots at this parking lot right here that are used throughout the school day, but also by our community that access the pool here. In this option, these would be elevated. The parking remains at a surface level with the entrance coming in here and coming out here. So picture coming in off South Mallway, you have parking all underneath these tennis courts throughout here, and then you exit this way, onto South Mallway. And so this is an option that is available to us in order to not acquire land. And it provides more parking than we currently have today and meets the needs of having tennis for the middle school as well as the additions that are there. And so in this option, that Renovate B option is, I believe, about $2 million more than where we were with Renovate A, 1.53 mils or $214.20 per year to an owner of a $400,000 home. And so with that, I will turn it back to Paul to talk about this process.
So in just a minute, we're going to give you a packet with all the survey data on it. We're going to give you a packet with everything Chris just showed you too. So you can take that home with you and study it. And it's going to have all of the high school options, just not the 2 new ones, so you can kind of compare everything. And it's going to have all the middle school options, just not the new one. So you'll be able to take all of that home with you. And we're also going to ask you tonight for your feedback on that. If you want to give it to us immediately, or if you'd like to take it home and think about it, we're okay with that. Now we know that based upon what the building teams have asked us to do, we are now introducing new information into the process. And so how do we do this at this late date and still give our community members, especially those who weren't able to attend tonight, the opportunity to weigh in on this? And so what we're going to do, and I talked to you about the 5 data points, I think more feedback is always good, right? Right? More feedback's always good. And so we're going to add a 6th data point. And that 6th data point is going to be what you're going to tell us tonight. And then we're going to do a short 2-week online survey and ask our community again to tell us what they think about this new stuff, okay? And so we're going to publicize that hard so we can really get as many people to weigh in as possible. But we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to weigh in. Do you remember what the theme of this whole process is? Anyone? Your voice matters, right? And so we're going to continue to ask people to weigh in because the Board of Education is really committed to making sure that the final recommendation is based upon what you're telling us. And so this is going to be happening very, very soon. So I want to talk, before we start the feedback process tonight, I just want to review what happens next. First of all, and I've mentioned this before, and you're going to get this on a handout, I think. This is going to be on a handout you're going to get, so you don't need to write this down. On September 27th at 6 o'clock at our central office on the Mallway, we're going to have the opinion researcher who conducted the telephone survey come and present the findings to the Board of Education. We would love to have you come to that meeting, but if you're not able to come, guess where all the information is going to be? On the website. You guys are great. We have a gifted group here tonight. Okay, we will also videotape that. So if you want to watch that presentation, you will be able to do that too. And again, I would love to have you come. Then on October 10th is a big, big day. October 10th, we're going to make our recommendation to the Board of Education about our master plan at 6 o'clock right here. Right here. And again, we hope everyone is able to come to that meeting October 10th right here. But if you're not able to come to the meeting, you know what I'm going to say next? All the information is going to be on our website. And we will also do what to the meeting? Videotape the meeting. You guys are good. So you'll be able to watch it if you would like to, okay? But the Board of Education is not going to vote on that night, right? Because the Board of Education wants to hear the recommendation and then give time for any of you who want to weigh in by contacting a member of the Board of Education time to do that. And so the Board of Education is anticipating taking action on this as early as November, but they reserve the right to take longer if they need to. Are you with me so far? Okay? And that's why I don't have a date for board action, because they want to leave that open based upon what you're telling them. Okay?
Is it just for the high school in Jones?
No. Remember, again, thank you for asking that. I said tonight, we're just talking about the high school in Jones tonight because we had new options. But this process is still about all 9 buildings. So the only reason that we're just talking about the high school in Jones tonight is because we had new options there. But this process is about all 9 buildings. All 9. Thumbs up if that makes sense. Do I need to do, okay? Okay, good, good. I still miss being a middle school teacher. I need a lot of feedback. I hope you don't mind that. Okay. So then the decisions phase, and this is really important because our decisions phase is when we decide when does all this happen and how does it get paid for, right? And so we're going to have a master plan, but as we've said again and again and again, this doesn't all have to happen at the same time, right? We can do this work over time if that makes sense. And so what's going to happen is our treasurer and CFO, Mr. Andy Geisfeld, Andy, why don't you wave there, okay? This is where Andy steps into the process and gives Chris and I a little bit of a break, okay? And we're excited about that, right, Chris? Okay. What Andy's going to do is he's going to appoint a financial advisory board, our FAB or FAB. And this is a group that is going to be made up of people who live in UA and have titles like CEO, COO, CFO, people who do this work on a daily basis out in the private and public sector in other places other than the school. You know, we have a lot of those people in our community who do this work all the time, and we want to lean on their expertise. That makes sense, right? And so what they're going to do is they are going to come in, and they're going to work with Andy and look at all of this and issue findings. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But they're going to issue findings based upon what they see. But the process doesn't stop there because all of us as members of the community need to have a chance to weigh in on what they say. So after they issue findings, then we're going to have another round of community meetings, building team meetings, and another survey, right? Another survey, another chance for all of us to weigh in. We're going to share all of the feedback publicly, and it's all going to be where? On our website. We'll tape those meetings as well, so you know what's going on. And then what's going to happen is we're going to send all that feedback back to that group, FAB, and they're going to synthesize all of the feedback from all of us, and then they're going to issue their final findings to Andy Geisfeld, our treasurer. And by late May, Andy is going to make a recommendation to the board about how to fund and how to phase our master plan. And there are many different ways to do that, but we are looking towards November of 2017 for a combination bond issue and operating levy. And remember, a bond issue, and we've talked about this in previous meetings, a bond issue is how capital improvements are funded in the state of Ohio in the public sector. And what a bond issue is it gives the Board of Education the authority to borrow money and pay it back over time, much like a home mortgage. And again, if you have questions about that during the Q&A period, you're going to want to call Andy over and he'll be able to walk through that with you. But that is a detailed process, and we'll be spending a lot of time on how that works during that third and final phase, our decisions phase. Now, these are the key considerations we are asking our FAB to review and issue findings upon. Number one, we're asking them to review our operating needs and issue findings for a needed 2017 levy. I have this many people in the room, so I'm not going to miss the opportunity. Schools are funded in Ohio through operating levies. People often ask, why do we have to have a levy every 3 to 4 years? Has anyone else ever heard that question? Am I the only one? Okay. Why do we have to have a levy every 3 to 4 years? And the answer is that is how the school funding system in Ohio works. We are basically flat funded, and the only way for us to get a cost of living raise is to come back to the voters every 3 to 4 years. Some people who have lived in Ohio for many decades often say, well, we didn't used to have to do that. And they're right. The law changed in the late 70s to actually make us come back, and it took the inflationary growth out of our funding. And the reason for that was to protect taxpayers and to provide additional accountability for school districts. So I will tell you, we will be coming back every 3 to 4 years for an operating levy until the system changes, and the system is not going to change. That's just how it works. And again, if you'd like to talk to Andy about that afterwards, he has charts and graphs. He can teach a graduate class in what I just said, right, Andy? Okay, so that's the first item. The second is the FAB is going to review the board-approved facilities master plan and consider implementation schedule options. Chris and I have said again and again and again, all of this doesn't have to happen at once. All of us know that we have a lot of needs and they equal a lot of money. And it may make sense to split some of this up and do it over time, because we know there's only a certain amount of money we can afford as a community. So we're asking them to look at those issues and make recommendations. And finally, we're going to ask them to look at our board-approved facilities master plan and recommend funding options. I told you that a bond issue is how school improvements are funded in Ohio, but there are many different ways to fund debt for schools. And so we want to bring, again, that team of experts on to look at all the different options and then issue findings so we can come back out to you and get your feedback on what they think is the best way to issue potential debt for school improvements. One of the things I have to say again, because I have you all in the room, and if you've been with me before, you've heard me say this, as a reminder, as we're in this process, a quick question: is there a zero cost option? No, there is no zero cost option. And so what we're doing is coming together as a community to figure out what option makes the most sense for all of us. And so again, this is the timeline for our decisions phase. And as we talk about our possibility to do this work over time, I want to go back to what we learned at the beginning of the process when we had the third-party group come in and do a physical assessment of our buildings. And they said that our greatest physical needs in the next 0 to 5 years are right here. They are at the high school. And then when you look at the elementary school, our physical needs are more in that 5 to 10 year range. And then when you look at our 2 middle schools, our needs there are more in the 10 to 15 year range. So again, does all of this have to be done at once? No, it does not have to be done all at once. And so this is why we want to bring this team together and look at our different options. And so now we are to the point where we enjoy the most, where we get your feedback and we have an opportunity to walk through the room and answer your questions. So what's coming out to you are 2 different packets of information. First of all is the informational packet with all the results from the first 4 data points, all of those graphs. And so you're going to see all of those. All of these copies are color copies and have been donated to us. Okay, right, Chris? So I don't want you to think that we were spending your dollars making a bunch of color copies. It was donated, okay, by ComDoc, and we appreciate that. But we felt the information was easier to follow in color, and so we asked them to do that for us. The second packet you are getting is the options packet. And hang on, I just need you to hang with me for another minute, guys. I mean, I'm using my middle school teacher voice again. Okay. And the other packet is the options packet that gives you all the options for the high school and all the options for the middle school. And the last page of that packet is a feedback sheet. So what I would tell you to do is rip off that feedback sheet. We're going to ask you to fill out the feedback form tonight and take the rest of the packet with you so you have it. So just rip off that feedback sheet. We're going to ask you to fill it out tonight. Now, I'll tell you, maybe you're going to say, Paul, I want more time to think about it. I don't want to just give you my feedback tonight. If that's what you want, that is okay. So if you'd like to take this home and think about it, take it home and think about it. You can drop it off at our office on the Mallway or any one of our school buildings, and we will get that information and be able to include it in our feedback. Maybe you say, I want more time to think about it, and I've lost the paper after tonight. That's how things work in my house, okay? We're going to have an online way for you to fill this out, and that's going to come out in an email. And if you're a parent, you're going to get that automatically. If you don't have kids in school right now, make sure we have your email address, and we can send that out to you, and you'll have a way to give us feedback in that way. So again, I want to thank everybody for continuing to be involved in the process. This process is being determined by all of you choosing to get involved, and that is what is going to make this a success. So right now, we are going to work at our tables to fill out the feedback forms, and then all of us are going to be available for questions. And after you have filled out your feedback form and had your questions answered, you are free to go and enjoy the evening. So once again, thanks so much for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Hey, I'm going to add one thing real quickly is why we have you all here is that Paul mentioned that we are doing these coffees in people's homes, and we need to be in more homes. And so if you're willing to host a coffee in your home, please call Paul's office and he'll set it up, and you invite 10 or 15, 20 of your friends, neighbors, enemies, whoever it may be, and we'll come in and talk for about an hour and answer questions face to face. So please consider a coffee. We've done 30 some. We want to get over 100, and we'd love to be in your home as well. So thank you.